Welcome to Christian Overcomers. We are the resistance, striving to keep the commandments of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ in this troubled world. Hey, Joe Biden's executive order and the coming famine. That will be the title of this week's prophecy update. Recently in the news, Fox News published that Biden announces executive actions on climate crisis, focuses on extreme heat and boosting offshore wind. And also a similar news article from naturalnews.com titled Sabotage Joe, Fake President Threatens to Declare Climate Emergency and Invoke Destructive Executive Orders to Shut Down America's Entire Energy Infrastructure. And then he continues on to say in this article, Natural News does, imagine America with no more offshore oil rigs functioning at all. Imagine a ban on the construction of new refineries and pipelines. Consider the horrifying ramifications of our entire nation being plunged into a Sri Lanka-style collapse with engineered fuel scarcity affecting trains, long-haul trucks, and all forms of transportation. Imagine no more. Sabotage Joe is reportedly planning on declaring a climate emergency and invoking executive orders that would make all these things a reality. Now, is this hype? I don't know. Okay, I do know that this is in their plans. The enemy's plans is to collapse America, to collapse the economies, to bring food shortages and things like that. Because how do I know it's in their plans? Well, I've read their protocols of the so-called learned elders, and I've read the Bible. Okay? And the Bible talks about these things. Jesus warned us that there would be famines and troubles in the last days, and that they would be part of the beginnings of these birth pangs of the tribulation period. All right. So, and we know that in the name of climate change is a hoax. Okay. It's a false, it is a way that the enemy can bring fear into us and try to control us. Okay. It is a way that the enemy can try to cause fear within us so that they can control us. All right. That they can control, that they can start limiting the fuel supply, which does what? That when fuel supply is low, the cost of fuel goes way up. And what happens when fuel goes way up? Well, everything we buy goes up because it costs money to ship things, okay? So the basic costs of living will skyrocket when they purposely try to make gasoline prices go up. You see it already look at the gas pump. Look at your grocery stores. Everything is going up, okay? Everything's going up. And it's beginning for the middle class people. I think I just read a news article this morning that said 75% of middle class Americans are saying that their wages are not keeping up with the cost of living. Alarming, isn't it? Okay, well, there's something we can do about it. We can do something about it. If you don't get in the mindset of when there's a problem that there's nothing I can do and all I can do is complain, then you're going to set yourself up for failure. Okay, we've got to be proactive. There's things we can do. Now check this out. First off, I want to just document that these things are coming. Okay, and then we'll talk about what we can do. Revelation 6 verse 5 says, and when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse. And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. Now these balances control It is a symbol of the economy. Okay. It's a symbol of the economy. The price of, I could say it this way, the cost of living. These balances determine the cost of goods and services bought and purchased. That's how they used to do it back in the day. Instead of going up to a cash register and handing over paper money, they used to weigh out silver or gold coins on one end, and on the other end of the scale would be like bags of wheat or other items, and everything was bought according to weight. All right? But here we see in the book of Revelation that there's this rider on a black horse, and he controls the economy. He controls whether or not your gasoline or your food costs $1 or $100. This black rider on the black horse manipulates the economy. All right? Now, verse 6, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, the four Zun, the four living creatures that guard God's throne, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. Now, what does it mean? Hey, a lot of people would look at this and say, hey, that's a pretty good deal. A measure of wheat for a penny. Notice that you can get 3 measures of barley for the same amount of money that you can get for just 1 measure for wheat. Okay, barley was evidently a cheaper grain. You could get more with it. We're not going to go in depth of why these two things would be mentioned here today. But we will point out that this penny is not penny like we think of it today. Basically, when you dig into the language and figure out what this is equivalent to in today's terms, this would be a whole day's labor for just 1 loaf of bread. Think about that. So you're talking about, for a lot of people, let's just say you're average American, okay? Average American. Let's just say an average American makes $300 a day, okay? $300 a day. That would mean that 1 loaf of bread costs you $300. Think about that. That's a severe famine. That's a severe shortage. And the way things are going right now with everything just going up and up, and, as if gas prices weren't high enough at $4.50 a gallon or $5 a gallon. Biden trying to sign executive orders and the liberals trying to pass climate change measures in Congress. All those things are just basically, what those bills are going to do. They're going to raise the prices of everything. They're going to restrict the energy supply, therefore making energy go skyrocket. And if energy is up, your food prices are up. And everything else, the entire cost of living, the entire cost for you just to survive. That's written in the Bible, my friends. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a realist. I'm a Christian who knows and understands the Bible and can kind of see the weather changing. I can see the signs of the time. How about you, my friends? They're telling us they're going to do this. Have you done anything about it? Have you tried to take action? I hope so. Because, I tell you what, I've been talking a lot about homesteading, preparing for times to come. A lot of people would say this is the prepping studies and things like that. That's what they would call this. But I've been doing studies on the importance of gardening and homesteading and providing for your own household. and things like that. And I think there are a lot of people, even in this audience, who really aren't that interested in that. Okay? They really aren't that interested in that. They just think, well, I'm just waiting for the end to come. You need to be doing something, my friends. You need to be preparing both spiritually and physically. The Bible continually talks about Christians or God's people being prepared. Now, it doesn't tell God's people to panic or to prepare in such a way that is ungodly or imbalanced. Okay? We'll talk about that in a minute. But you know what? As you guys will notice, we don't have, some of our videos will get up into the thousands, and a lot of our videos will hang around 200 to 300 viewers. And it's because we simply teach the Bible chapter by chapter and verse by verse. I'm not trying to pick topics that are going to excite somebody's imagination or get more viewers or spend all day long trying to think of tricky titles to get clicks. We're simply giving the truth in season. When God gives it, we deliver it. And it is alarming at times when you look at what's out there and what gets viewed. And when we simply deliver the Bible chapter by chapter and verse by verse and not see huge numbers, we knew it would happen. God told Isaiah it would happen. He said, just keep preaching the word till the land is utterly desolate without inhabitant. Meaning that Isaiah's ministry, a lot of people wouldn't listen at that time. Okay? You got to take these things seriously, my friends. We're going to preach it no matter if there's one person or 100,000 people listening. We're just going to teach the word. No gimmicks, no thrills, just the word of God. That's how it should be. We're not looking to please people. We're not looking to build an empire. We're not looking, just the truth. All right? All right, so here we go. We know what's coming. God doesn't just tell us things are coming so we can sit on our duff and say, oh, this is really cool. It's like a movie. No, it's given to you so you can prepare. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, come and see. Come take a look at this. This is important. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And his name that sat on him was Death. And hell followed with him. And power was given unto him over the fourth part of the earth to kill with the sword and with hunger. And with hunger. Again, Jesus told us that famines would come, distress of nations. He told us about this. And it's repeated in the book of Revelation a little bit more in depth. And with death, and with the beasts of the earth. My friends, there will be a lot of death on this earth. You'd say, well, come on, the grocery stores will always be open. They're all not, is that true? Yeah. Back in 2020, you saw that wasn't true, and that was just a minor blip. The Wuhan disaster, okay, that brought about the thing, okay, which in turn brought about you must do this or not participate in society. That, my friends, happened overnight. Any number of these things our world can change just like that. All right? And it will change just like that. When? I don't know. But when we're seeing the signs of the time, and we see all the warning signs, and we see the enemy saying, I want to bring energy prices up through climate change, threats and fears and anxieties. All right? The whole world is going to go into global warming. We gotta act now. And then the depraved leftist lunatics are like, yes, let's do it. Let's do it. They're going to destroy the earth. Now, I'm all about being a good steward of the earth. But what I'm not about is fear tactics to bring in communism and socialism. Okay? I'm not for that. But will it come? Yes, it will. It's written. The question is, What will you do about it? What are you doing now about it? Have you changed your lifestyle? Listen, we cannot just keep living as though this is 1995 or 2016 or whatever. We're in different times, my friends. We can't just keep living the way we used to and expect to ride out the storm that's coming. We've got to start changing our ways of life. We've got to start unplugging, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Unplugging from the grid more and more so that these things do not affect us like they will others. All right, and I guess that leads us into this verse right here. What does the Bible say about Christians preparing? What does the Bible say about coming off of the grid? What do I mean by coming off the grid? By not being reliant upon the government and the government systems. Now, that doesn't mean that we completely come off the grid as far as community goes. We've got to plug into a community of other believers, of like-minded people, because you're not going to be able to withstand the coming storm alone. Okay? You'll drive yourself absolutely nuts if you think you got to have every single thing to have to get your family ready for survival. You're going to need other Christians. Okay? We need to build community. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but we've got to prepare. Check this out. Come off the grid. What does the Bible say about coming off the grid? Check this out. Proverbs 27 verse 12. A prudent man foreseeth the evil. He foresees the calamity. That's what that word evil means. Calamity, troubles. He sees it coming. And what? And hideth himself. But the simple pass on and are punished. Okay? Now, this is a figure of speech. It doesn't mean literally hide yourself, okay, in a bunker somewhere. It means you protect yourself. You protect your assets. You protect your family from loss. Okay, that's what it means. Now, let's talk about this. So a prudent man, basically, he prepares himself for what's coming. Now, think about this. Some would say, well, it hasn't quite come yet, even though it's going that way big time. Just look at your gas pump. Think about this. Noah didn't wait for it to start raining before he began building the ark. All right. Now, he built that ark for years and years before the floods came. Okay, God told him to build the ark. He said, hey, a flood's coming. I'm going to destroy this place. But it didn't come like tomorrow or the next year or the year after. It was a lot of years. And I'm trying to think, it might have been like 40 years, if I remember right, from the time that God warned Noah. And Noah was consistently, he didn't build the ark overnight. It was a little bit at a time. A few boards here, a few boards there. He didn't try to cram it all in, and that's what I don't want people to start doing. It's easy to do. I tend to want to get everything prepared right now. No, it's got to be a constant process, okay, of changing the way you do things to prepare for what's coming. Okay, so Noah, he didn't wait for it to start raining before he built the ark. He got going on it, okay? Joseph, you remember Joseph? Before the 7 years of famine, well, he stored up food for the that entire 7 years. He didn't just sit around, or he didn't just wait till the year before the famine and store up food. No, during the 7 years of plenty, he stored up extra grain. Okay? Those are great biblical examples of what those two men, Noah and Joseph, are a type of what the people living in the end times should be doing. Preparing. Spiritually and physically. And you know what? When you live a life of preparation and you start coming off of the grid, start coming out of Babylon, the lifestyle is actually fun. It's actually more of a biblical lifestyle. Really, biblical preparation is merely getting back to the way our forefathers used to live. All right? We'll talk about that more in a little bit. So as Christians, again, I'm going to repeat this. We need to be actively working to get ourselves off of the grid, to get ourselves non-reliant upon the Babylonian systems of this world, the Babylonian economy that is destined to fall. All right, how do we do that? I forgot I was going to put bullet points here, but I didn't. But here we go. How do we do that? Number one, we start growing our own food, okay? That's something that my family has started to do big time here, and we're planning more for next year, okay? Growing our own food, having a small flock of chickens to lay eggs, having a small flock of chickens for butchering, for meat chickens, things like that, okay? Becoming energy independent. Okay, that's something that I am, haven't worked on a lot, but some, but I'm not able to do it all right now, because these things cost money and it takes time and work. So that's on my list, okay? For some of you, that might be something you can do right away. A wood-burning stove, solar panel. I really wouldn't suggest gas-powered generators, except if you're just going to ride out a storm or a weak crisis or something, because they take gasoline, right, and other fuels. I would suggest solar-paneled solar generators, okay? Solar generators. And the other thing here, this would be number 3, form our own economies. We can't do this alone. So if we try to do this all alone, and think you got to have everything ready, you're going to, like I said, you're going to drive yourself crazy. We need to start networking with each other. So one family could focus on one thing, another family focus on another thing. And that if a crisis comes, we can all band together and help each other get through this. Okay? Help each other get through this, because we need community. Some of the other things we can start doing right now to take steps: buy local and buy Christian. Find Christian farmers. Go to your farmer's market. Okay, I just did that for the first time last weekend. Okay, that's a great place to try to find and network with Christian farmers. Barter. Start bartering with other Christians. Okay. And I guess you could essentially say it like this: the Amish have sort of laid out a prototype for us. Okay. Now, I don't know a lot about the Amish and what they believe and things like that, but they have the self-sufficiency thing down pretty good. And they have their networks, their communities and things like that. So think about that. I'm not telling people we need to be like the Amish and we need to start wearing their clothes and all those types of things, or live exactly like they do, but start thinking a lot like they do as far as independence goes and community. Okay. You might say, well, Pastor Ben, where in the Bible does it tell us to separate from the world? Where does it tell us to get off of the grid? Aren't we supposed to be in the world to influence the world and things like that? Yes, in part, but there does come a time where we are supposed to remove ourselves from Babylon, the systems of the world. Okay? Here it is. Check it out. Where we are supposed to come off the grid, so to speak. Revelation 18, verse 2. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, this angel, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Do you know what Babylon was primarily? It was a world economic empire, a world economic system. It was a system where goods and services were traded. It was a whole network. They had ships that went overseas and back and forth. And now it all falls. My friends, it sure seems like that fall has begun. If Babylon supplies you with all of your food, all of your goods, everything you need, then you ought to start thinking about another way to get those things. Grow your own, make your own, produce your own, and stay local as much as possible. Because if this whole thing falls down, my friends, if Babylon crashes, which it will, but if it happens in our lifetime, you're going to need to find a different way to live. If that grid is completely down, if the grocery stores are out of commission because we no longer get shipments from Mexico, from Peru, from wherever, you're going to need food right where you live. And you're going to need a community of people that you know and get along with and can work with. Because it's fallen. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. They all just lived in luxury, buying and selling everything cheap, goods from China, you name it. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies, the global corporations. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues." What is that? That's a direct command to come out, to unplug from Babylon's grid, from Babylon's resources. It's right there. Babylon is the world economy, my friends. It's the world systems. God says, come out of her. Find a different way to live. Grow your own. Produce your own. Build a community. Stick together. Locally. Okay? It's so important. Because when the internet goes down, if the internet goes down or if it's just controlled and you can't get on there, it's a lot harder for them. It takes a lot more manpower for them to prevent you from meeting in person, face to face with people. Think about this, a lot of financial transactions can take place without the plastic card if you do it local. The tracking ability and all that goes down. Just leave your phone at home, right? All right. Hey, this is serious. This is serious. Am I trying to fearmonger you? No, but I'm trying to put a little godly common sense into all of us. Again, I've got a lot of work to do, but I'm continually working every year and have been for a while to prepare my family for this. Revelation 12, verse 6. Are there any other Bible? Revelation 18 clearly tells us to unplug from the grid of Babylon systems. Revelation 12, I believe, also talks about this as well. Check this out. Revelation 12, verse 6, and the woman fled into the wilderness. Okay? She got away from the world systems. Okay? Unplugged, off the grid, into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Now think about that. This is this draws us back to the type when Israel was freed from Egypt, from the bondage of Egypt. They went out into the wilderness. They didn't have an infrastructure. They didn't have anything. I mean, this is to the extreme. They didn't have gardens, which we can have now. They didn't have farms. They didn't have anything. They just had the clothes on their back and some belongings and some tents. And God provided for them. All right? Now, that doesn't mean that we are to just wait until Babylon falls and trust that God will protect us. Okay? We ought to be preparing now. Again, we have the story of Noah. Spent years building the ark. Joseph, years storing up grain. The 10 virgins in the book of Matthew, the parable of the 10 virgins. 5 had oil in their lamps, 5 prepared, and 5 did not prepare for the darkness that was coming. And the 5 that were unprepared didn't make it. They didn't make it. Okay? So, let's go on to another verse. Is it biblical to prepare? Well, Proverbs 6 verse 6 says this, "Go to the ant, thou sluggard, and consider her ways and be wise." Did you catch that? The Proverbs tells us to study the ant. Stop being lazy. Be wise by watching what she does. There are a lot of people that are being lazy right now. That doesn't mean, hey, well, I go to work, I work hard. But are you preparing for winter? What is winter? The lean season, the famine, the troubles. Are you preparing for that? We know it's coming. Check this out. "Which, having no guide, overseer, or ruler," the ant, "provideth her meat in the summer. She gathers it when the harvest is there." Okay. "And gathereth her food in the harvest." When it's there. Before it's too late. All right. And so what does she do? What does the ant do? Does it happen all at once? No, it happens a little bit at a time. Just go study the ant. Grabbing stuff. Storing, grabbing, storing, grabbing, storing. Now, I don't want anybody to all of a sudden go absolutely nuts after this study. Become filled with anxiety, stress, and say, I'm way far behind. I got to get going. No, just start with something and start moving. Pray about it. Pray about it. You got to do something on a regular basis. I don't know if that's a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, but it's got to be consistent. Like the ant. The ant doesn't just wait and try to grab all of its food at once. You got to start somewhere and start small, a little bit at a time. But be consistent. When I say do a little bit, it doesn't mean just be lazy and just do a little thing and call it good. It means start and keep building and building and building. We need to be doing that, okay? Again, starting our own gardens. It's so important. Homesteading is the way of the future anyways. In the millennial age, it says that every man's going to be under his own vine and his own fig tree. That means you're going to be growing your own food on your own land in the millennial age. All right? In the eternity, it's going to be much like it was in the Garden of Eden. All right? Get used to growing food. Okay? It was God's original purpose for Adam and Eve was that they tend the garden. They took care of the garden. It was just the way of life. It was a beautiful way of life. But we find Babylon systems, this big cities, the this and that, all of the glamour of the world. We find that enjoyable, but that falls. That doesn't last. It's not the terms that the left likes to use a lot. It's not sustainable. It's not part of the sustainability program. Okay. Babylon does not last, but God's ways do last. All right? All right. Let me see if I got any more verses. I think that was it. Hey, with that said, I encourage you to be proactive, my friends. Start today. Do something today to be like the ant, to start preparing for the hard times ahead. The signs are on the horizon. The leftists want to promote this climate change crisis. There was a crisis 2 years ago in 2020. The new crisis seems to be the climate. Okay? And who else knows what will happen? Just, hey, be at peace. But be proactive. Don't be lazy. There's a lot of Christians have this idea, I'm going to be at peace. God, just going to trust in God. But they're not proactive. Why not be proactive? Do what you can and then trust in God. Isn't that the natural way? God doesn't like sluggards. He doesn't like lazy people. Don't be lazy, especially when it comes to the future of your family and even the future of Christianity, being able to survive the hard times so that you can preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. God bless you. Stay in His Word every single day so that you can be a Christian overcomer.
Christian Overcomers is brought to you by the tithes and offerings of our listeners. If you would like to support our ministry, please go to ChristianOvercomers.com. God bless you, and thank you for your support.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the fateful lightning of His terrible sword. His truth is marching